information session on the Genomic Medicine program at Imperial College London. I'm Mike Lovett. I'm the program director, and I'm going to give you a pretty brief overview of the entire course, and then I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. So these are the three people within the Genomic Medicine team. Myself, a senior teaching fellow, Laura Colopy, and Lawrence Peffers, who is also on the call, who is the administrator. This is quite an unusual MSc because you have the usual interaction with world-renowned researchers and teachers, but the second point here stretches far beyond Imperial. We have many lecturers who come from different institutions. We have lecturers from Big Pharma. We have lecturers from many different institutions around London and throughout the world. The teaching format is a little unusual in that it's blended, meaning that there's a mixture between online teaching and a 1 week per month mandatory face-to-face session. We offer it in full-time and part-time options, and we have external partnerships, formal partnerships with the Institute for Cancer Research and Brunel University for a couple of our modules. And we have a very diverse student cohort, which we can talk about later if you wish. But about a quarter of our students are healthcare professionals, many physicians, nurses, midwives, of all sorts of stages in their careers. Again, we'll talk about that funded basis at the very end of this talk. The course is modular, meaning that it runs month by month, so that you start a module, you run all the way through those 4 weeks, you put in your assessment online, and then you're free to get on with the next module. If you do 4 of those modules, then you get a postgraduate certificate. If you do 8, you get the diploma. And then the full MSc has the 8 modules plus a 3-month research project, which we'll talk about in some detail in a moment. You can do it in those sorts of stages, jumping from a cert if you want to start on that and then move to a diploma, or you could do the whole MSc. It's really up to you. There are some funding constraints for those funded by Health Education England, but we'll come to that at the end. So the entry requirement is a 2:1 degree in a relevant subject, which is usually a scientific subject. It can be quite a steep learning curve for people who don't come from some sort of biomedical science background. We accept a wide variety of international qualifications, and if you don't quite meet those minimum academic requirements, but you interview superbly and can answer all the questions in the interview, etc., then we may consider you suitable and write a special case for that. We will be exploring your rationale and your motivation to do genomic medicine, and that was both part of the application form and also part of the interview process. So to give you some sort of idea of how that works, probably about 80% of our paper applications move towards the interview stage. So 20% do not get interviewed. And of those 80%, we usually accept about half. That is very much mandated by not space so much as just qualifications and motivations. So we have many people in the program who have come back to science from being out of it. We have many who have gone off into other things. But if they're motivated and driven to do genomic medicine, we will take a very good look at them. So the application process is that you apply through Imperial College admissions. Those are reviewed by our team, and as I said, perhaps 20% fail to make that hurdle. And if you're successful at that stage, you will be invited to interview, and that interview consists of a lot of questions about your motivation and your interests, and then the discussion of a short paper that we will forward to you. And we will ask you about, it's not a little journal club, it really is much more conceptual stuff about that paper and the subject matter in it. And that interview consists of, interviewers consists of myself and my senior teaching fellow, and sometimes other faculty members as well. And then we notify you very quickly after that, within a couple of weeks. So we try and turn this around very quickly. The course looks complicated here, but in fact what it is it's modular monthly subject matter, and you get assessed every month on that subject matter. And there's 2 times in the year, one time in January and one time in March, where you can have optional modules. So you pick one of those optional modules. So you can see that in March there are 4 optional modules, one of which you pick. And then the other ones are core modules, which you have to take to get the MSc. Now you can split this up over 2 years if you want, and you then do your project in your second year. And there are different requirements for part-time than full-time, in the sense that the project can stretch out over a longer period of time, but with less work comprised within that time. In a normal 1-year MSc, you do the project from June to September, and that's full-time, working perhaps in a lab, perhaps doing it computationally. We'll talk about that in a minute, but in that month, the month of a module, you have 3 weeks of self-directed study, that meaning online at your own pace, and usually the second week is a live face-to-face mandatory week, and that mostly comprises a lot of discussion, a lot of journal clubs, a lot of interactions, and deals with a lot of the more complicated parts of that particular subject matter. And then the assessment is submitted at the end of each module, and you're done for that, and you move on to the next one. So, as I said, you have these optional modules. You take one of those per elective group, so one in January and one in March, and you have to specify those fairly early, mostly for room bookings. Our total number of students right now is about 60 or 70 in the full-time 1 year, and then we have maybe 20 or more who are doing the 2 years. So the total footprint in terms of students is about 100. You're not going to see a class of that size, except in the very first module, the fundamentals module, which everybody has to take, and you'll see 60 or 70 in a class then, and then it sort of people pace themselves out over, if they're doing part-times, or between electives as well. Now, self-directed learning is a mixture of many things. It's not just a bunch of didactic video lectures. It has all sorts of material in there. It may be reading background material. It may be highly interactive. But what you have to do is realize that week 1 content really does have to be completed to be ready and able to do the week 2 content, which is the face-to-face stuff. So in May, we're going to be doing our bioinformatic module. If you don't do the first week's work, you're not going to know how to do basic command line language coding. So you'll really struggle in the second week. So there are things you have to do in the first week, but it really is at your own pace. Now, the project can be many things. It could be a wet lab project in the sort of traditional way. It could be a bioinformatic project. It could also be a systematic review. But it does have to be something that's not just a meta-analysis, a sort of review of a review. It has to be something in which you're actually discovering something new if it's from the literature. The research project is 80% marked on a written dissertation, and then 20% marked on a 15-minute oral presentation. So that's a lot of marks for a very brief oral presentation. So it pays off to have that well organized and very slick. And that, like all of the assessments, is assessed by two markers. One at least will be a faculty member. We have some graduate teaching assistants, but most of the time it's two faculty members marking everything. We also allow people to do projects in other institutions, in which case we would nominate an imperial co-supervisor just to make sure that the same standards are upheld. And yeah, people have even done projects with outside the UK. That has to be extremely well justified, but they certainly UK institutions, if you have a particular wish to work in one particular place on one particular project, then we will certainly consider that. We try to be very flexible about it. Now, we are not very paternalistic about research projects. There are some programs which pair you with sort of required pairing with a PI who's going to be give you your research project. We get a whole long list of research projects, usually at the beginning of the year. We've been a little slow this year, but we get a long list, and then it's your responsibility to go off and explore whether you want to do that project with that person. You also can go to, any of the lecturers that lecture and you might say, hey, I'm really interested in your work. Can I do my research project with you? Those work out as well. As I said, we're very flexible. There is an approval for research projects. You can't just sort of jump into the sea and say I can swim. But initially you just explore research project titles, and then you map out what you're really going to do, and then we look through that and assess whether it is a large enough body of work and not too much work. So we're trying to keep a level playing field between all of those multiple students doing very different things. So the project is over 14 weeks, and the full-time students complete the project over those 14 weeks. Part-time students are allowed to spread it out over a calendar year, over a year. And the oral presentations take place 2 weeks after the dissertation submission. So where do our students go, and how can we help? Well, a very large number of our students go on to do PhDs. And that sometimes translates from their research project, but we are very cognizant that there's a limited number of PhD spots out there. So we do try and help you know when there's things becoming available and how to get through that process. We've had a lot of success with students applying for the Clinical Scientist Training Program. That's very competitive. And I can't remember the numbers, but it's an awesome number. It's like, 40 people apply for every one spot. But those students do come back and talk to the current students, and it's you get a lot of insight into how to succeed at that application process. We have many people who go into industry or go back to industry in genomic medicine divisions within, for example, GSK, AstraZeneca, many different companies, internationally as well. And then we have quite a cohort of entrepreneurs and already proven venture capitalists who have taken our MSc because they want to know what genomic medicine and the surge in biotech opportunities is in reality, and to really get some grounding in whether it's real or pretend. So it covers the waterfront, and we're not even here talking about all the clinicians and healthcare professionals who come into our program and go back and really take all that expertise back into the clinic. There's a lot of welfare and academic support within the college. This just sort of gives you a feeling of all of that support that's always there. We also are highly committed to cohort building. And by that, I mean, we don't want you to be sitting at home and not feeling like you're part of a student group. So we really do have a lot of drop-in sessions. We have a lot of things that we try to bring you together while you're on campus. And there's no reason why you can't be on campus all the time if you want to be. But that 1 week of face-to-face teaching is a great time for everybody to get to know each other and really build cohesion. For finance, overseas tuition fees are pretty steep. We don't have many fellowships or scholarships for master's programs, but here are a few of the sort of options you can look at. And you can see some URLs here for student scholarship information. And the domestic fees are much more tractable, and we can certainly talk to you about any of these if you're having any problems with them. Now, I want to talk very briefly about the HEE application process. So Health Education England funds what amounts to about a dozen MSCs within our program every year. But they like to split the money up into 4 module chunks. So they like to give it out for initially certificates. So we have quite a lot of people in our program who are doing certificates and have done the required 4 modules already. And about this time of year, we look at our budgets, which are guaranteed by HEE, and we ask those students if they want to rise up to the diploma stage now, or even the full MSc stage. And we take our money and give preference to the students who are in our program and doing well. And then everything that's left over, we're going to give to HEE de novo applicants, people who want to start the program. So when you apply through us and you say that you'd like to do HEE funding, you'll go through the normal interview process. If you make it through that, you get put on hold. And that is not in any shape or form an insult. It's just a matter of saying, hold on for a minute while we get all the finances sorted out. And then we offer you a funded place for that certificate. And that's the process that's happening right now. So we keep in touch with you to let you know if there's enough money. And sometimes we go back and ask HEE for more. And we work very closely with them. So the HEE application process, you don't have to go through an interview or anything like that with them, but you do have to have signed off your line manager's permission to do the course, because you're going to do it on a part-time basis. You're going to do it takes up, you have to have that week of face-to-face interaction. So you have to figure out your schedule way ahead of the curve, and we make sure that you have that schedule very far up front. So that's the process there for HEE, and we really try and take the best of the best, and we love having the diversity that this cohort of students, these healthcare professionals, brings to the entire program. So with that, that's the end of my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Any questions?
Just wanted to check, like, you said the HEE applications you're put on hold. So do you have any approximate timelines, like, a month or so, to know whether
Depends on the volume of applications. the latest I think we make decisions is around about August, but we'd like to make it way ahead of that.
Right. Okay.
And right now is the time that we're discussing all the people that are going up to diplomas, and then we'll know the bottom line on the money.
Right. Okay.
So it's very soon. You know, I'd be surprised if if we had a huge volume of HEE, we'd probably be topping out in May or June.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. A part of the problem this year has been that college decided to change all the websites for every program. And I don't think that they really made an improvement. They've made it sort of, impossible to find some things. You have to dig deep to find out how to get HEE funding and things like that, In one case, one of our programs, is just allowed right now to accept certificates, applications for certificates. It's not genomic medicine, it's a different program, allergy or something, I can't remember what it is. But anyway, the powers that be, the silly powers that be, then posted that on every single master's site. So last week I interviewed somebody who had applied for a certificate, and I said, why didn't you apply for a master's? Oh, he said, oh, the front page of your website said you can only apply for a certificate. So fortunately, it was only there for like 3 days, and we've realized and got it lifted. But this poor guy had applied during that 3 days, and he thought, oh, I'm stuck with doing a certificate. It just shows you, the right hand sometimes doesn't know what the left hand is doing. But yeah, you can apply through that website. You should be able to find all the information you need. And if you have problems with the HEE side of it, we'll help you. And the guy to talk to is Lawrence.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
For the research project, is for part-time students. Is it also the research project done during the summer, or is it stretched out?
It can be done as you wish. So if you can get off those 14 weeks, you could do it in the summer, just like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I think people find it quite advantageous if they can stretch it out. It's then if you for a wet lab project, it usually isn't a great idea to stretch things out because you need some continuity in doing experiments.
Yeah.
A day here or a day there isn't a great idea. For something computational, then yes, sometimes that can be really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's up to you, but the total you're allowed is 1 year to do that project, from the time you officially start it to the time you end it.
Okay.
You can start it whenever you like, as long as you end a year later. Yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Anybody else? Well, either my presentation was super clear or it was clear as mud.
Could I possibly inquire about the application process?
Yes.
I'm currently filling out my account on the Gateway, Imperial Gateway. And I'm at the stage where I want to attach a personal statement. However, I don't know if I need to submit the initial application and the personal statement is a supporting document, or if I'm missing a tab somewhere.
I think it is a supporting document within that application, and it is just a PDF attachment.
Okay, so I'd have to submit this initially and then attach my references and supporting information after.
Yeah, it's you really do want to have that supporting statement with your main application. If you only have, let's say, one reference and you're still waiting for one, that's fine. It can go in. We like to see the references. We are going to also see your transcript, but that supporting statement, your motivation for doing this, is very, very important.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Me again, sorry.
Yeah, no
just
problem at
wanted
all.
to adding to the same application with HEE. Do we have to do any forms from our end, or
if we have said accepted you and said you're off the wait list, then yes, then what you need to do, the most essential thing, is your line manager's permission. And we can help you navigate all of that. So that once they know, I mean, the major thing is to be accepted by Imperial, and then they figure out with us if we've got enough money, and we pretty well know that. And I wouldn't say it's a rubber stamp, because what they want is people who are motivated to do the thing, but the absolute hurdle is the line manager.
Right. Okay. So you do send us the forms or direct us where the forms are?
We'll direct you. Yeah.
Perfect.
We'll help you through it.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we're coming up. Is it this half an hour, Lawrence? Is that what we're doing?
I mean, we had an hour, but if there's no more, no more questions,
if there's no questions, we'll just finish up. But still very happy to answer your questions. Anything at all. Oh, okay. All right. Yes.
One more question, please. I wanted to ask, for example, weekly, how many lectures would there be for part-time students and for full-time students?
Oh, it's exactly the same workload.
Okay.
There's no difference. It's just, let's say you came in part-time. You might choose, you'd have to do fundamentals. Everybody has to start on that. And then you might say, oh, I'm going to skip the next one. I'll do it next year. You see what I mean?
Okay.
So you still do that same module. So once you're into the module, everybody's doing the same stuff. It's just you might choose to let one go until next year.
Okay. And one more question, per module, how many lectures are there supposed to be?
Oh, it's very, very different.
Okay.
You know, there's no set sort of thing. And we have very much, I mean, it's easy enough to watch a video lecture. What you get a lot out of is having your questions answered. All right. So I personally don't like to have too many lectures in the face-to-face week. I like to have a lot of discussion sessions and journal clubs and things like that. And that has two great functions. One is it gets everybody discussing, but it also has everybody gets together and they get to know each other, because you're being put in random groups. And you're coming up with a presentation that you then talk to the entire class about. That's far better learning. And it's far better to actually have the time to watch a lecture, perhaps online, and then have all your questions and all of the material really, you know, in your head when you come to do the interactions. So that it's a much better learning experience. So I would say that the face-to-face weeks, sometimes there are some that are quite lecture heavy. I think infectious diseases has quite a lot of lectures, but in many of them, it's much more discussion, journal club, things like that.
Thank you.
Okay.
If just add to that briefly. So yeah, with the with the face-to-face teaching weeks, they're typically sort of 9 till 5 as an expectation, just of a time scale. And Mike, maybe you could clarify this, but for part-time students, they usually aim to do sort of 5 to 6 modules in the first year, would you say? Or
yeah, it can work out that you could do all 8 if you wanted to, if you had the time, because you can do 4 modules, and then if we have the money, we can bump you up to a diploma, and then you get to do the next 4. But that's a kind of difficult time scale to keep to. So pretty much everybody who's HEE funded is doing it over 2 years. But now, I mean, the majority of our students are 1 year full-time. But there are many, many different routes you can take through it. And the structure of the modules, the arrangement of them is not sort of random. Over the years, we do listen to student feedback a lot. And the initial students said, oh, it would be far better to do omics technologies right after fundamentals and before anything else. So that's why we have it placed there, so that you get to know the technological basis of things. Otherwise, you're getting all this jargon thrown in, and you don't know, what this particular thing is or isn't, So we do advise people to do it in that order: fundamentals, omics, and then after that, it's not so important, the order of it, but it, the way we arrange it is what we think is the best learning route. All right, I think we will just, if there's no more questions, then I think we will say our goodbyes, and I hope to see you in an interview soon.
Before you go, could I quickly inquire whether the majority of the laboratory teaching is performed within the research project?
Yes, it is. So there's no lab practicals other than bioinformatics, which is conducted pretty much completely in computer labs. So you get a fair bit of computational training, but it's much more to demystify bioinformatics than to make you a card-carrying bioinformatician. And the rest of it, if it's wet lab stuff, it would be within your project, your research project. That does not preclude you from, if you have the free time, from essentially rotating in various labs. We try and encourage that. That's a matter of persuading the PIs to take you in to try out their lab, type of thing. Okay, folks, well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And just let us know if we can help later. All right? Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.